Hi, I'm Jonathan Boyd, and this is a Bowspring Basics practice that will look at the curvatures of the spine. I was very fortunate when I began yoga that I had skillful instructors in different modalities like Ashtanga and Anusara that emphasize creating the natural curvatures of your spine. Specifically for me, the lordosis, the inward arching of the low back, and instantaneously it felt fantastic and great. And unfortunately, as I progressed further into yoga, the emphasis became more on tucking the tailbone and flattening the back, getting a straight spine to protect the back. And what that ended up happening was causing me pain in the back, pain in the hip, etc., etc. So the remedy for that was actually Bowspring and just a realigning back to the natural curves and even enhancing the curvatures of the spine. So please begin in all fours position, hands and knees. And in all fours, you're welcome to round and arch your back in the movement exercise of cat-cow, where you literally are just testing the range of motion for your spine. So what is the end members of the spectrum on your range of motion? So there's the full rounded position and then the full back bend position. So as I progressed further into yoga, the emphasis was on settling the chest down so the shoulder blades come on the back, and then also tucking the tailbone under to create a tabletop position and a flat back, where you could end up just having dinner on my back. Now, that's not so great in terms of feeling if you tuck your toes under and then lift your knees to hover away from the floor. You get tense and a little bit upset. So lower your knees, point your toes back, and then in Bowspring, emphasize the curve of your upper back like the rounded position when you're doing cat-cow. So you push the hands down, but then at the same time, drop your belly lower down, push your knees out to the side so your glutes get stronger, lift your chin, then tuck your toes under, lift your knees to hover away from the floor. And then that's where you're happy. That's where there's all smiles. Lower your knees, point your toes back, and then sit about halfway back towards your heels. As you sit halfway back, push your knees out to the sides and feel how that gets your glutes stronger. To enhance the curve, the natural curve of your low back, it's important to have strong, engaged glutes to do that work and not the weaker lower back muscles. And sometimes what happens in Bowspring when people do it for the first time is they go like, oh, my back's sore. And there's a difference between your muscles are achy because you are working them and then actually having your spine sore at the joints of each successive vertebra. So now, keeping the glutes activated, tuck your toes under, lift your knees, and rise up for crouching cat position. So traditionally in downward facing dog, it was to push your hips way back, even work towards pushing your head to the floor and then straightening the legs. And for me, I'm a prime example. When I straighten the legs, my low back begins to round and it just doesn't feel very good. So I was fortunate to have teachers teach me to bend the knees and then tilt the sit bones up into the air. And then Bowspring takes it even further by coming a little bit forward. In old yoga, it was called plog position, plank dog, looking between the hands. Push the hands down, lift the rib cage up, but then tilt your sit bones up into the air so you create a wavy spine position. Push your knees out to the side, get your glutes active and strong, look forward. One last breath in, and then lower your knees down, point your toes back. The first Bowspring class that I ever did, the teachers, founders, John and Desi, encouraged us to do all fours on fingertips. And I was like, no way, I can't do that. That's impossible. You can't go on fingertips. But what I was missing was that you aren't meant to weight bear on fingertips, but by moving your hips back, creating the natural curve of your low back, pushing your knees out to the side, and then rising up onto fingertips, using the fingertips to push down to get the rib cage full so you get the natural outward curvature of your upper back. It is possible, and you can even go to one hand and then the other hand course, if you're directly forward and trying to drop your weight down, it's a lot more difficult. But instead, it's all about the glutes, the natural curvature, and then the pushing out. Okay, hands down, tuck your toes under, crouching cat position. Look forward between your hands and slowly step forward near the front of your space. Have your feet about hip distance apart, and then standing forward fold. This is, of course, more traditional yoga position, and especially with straight legs for someone like myself who is a little less flexible than the average yoga practitioner when it comes to hamstrings. This pose doesn't necessarily feel the best for the back because it ends up just being a lot of pressure on the discs in the spine. So instead, just rise up right away in Bowspring and put your hands to your knees for recovery position. And in recovery position, bend your knees forward and then move the tops of your thighs back so you create the arch in your low back. What Bowspring isn't, but often gets misconstrued, is that it's just a total arching of your back, looking like that and looking like that. So I have a number of friends, very skillful practitioners, teachers who think that is Bowspring, and all they're looking at is the low back and just assuming it's the whole back. But the upper back is actually rounded. You can tuck your chin in, push down with the hands, fill into your upper back, push the knees forward, move your hips back at the arch in your low back, push your knees out to the side, feel your glutes get stronger, and then slowly rise up. And then float your arms forward in front of you. Bend your elbows and touch two fists together. And this basic standing position in Bowspring is called earth pose as opposed to mountain from the yoga side of things. Now in earth pose, begin to tilt forward towards a halfway lift position. And on this one, I'll even use blocks just to show how you can use blocks to maintain the curvature of the spine. So hinging forward, bringing the hands down, bending the knees, move the hips back, arch the low back, push the hands down, lift the rib cage up, look forward, maintain the arch in your low back. Your hamstrings are connected to your sit bones, so if you can broaden the sit bones and lift them up and then push your legs straighter, that's where you get the intense stretch, and I'm feeling that right now. Ooh-wee. That feels good. Oh, yeah. Sometimes what I will literally do in this position is turn the other way to the wall and have the top of my head press into the wall. So create the natural curvature of the spine and then move the head, move the rib cage forward in that direction as I move the hips back in that direction and then push the legs straighter from there. And it's a totally different sensation. It's stretching to the extreme, but in my opinion, in a very safe manner. So now just pushing up from that halfway lift position, rise up, and then touch your fingers together for globe hands. In globe hands, take a little step forward with your left foot, push your foot forward to move your hips back so you create the arch in your low back, and then pull the foot back to tone the back of your leg as you lift it and step back into a short lunge position. The benefit of the short lunge position is you can tilt forward and enhance the curvatures of the spine. So push your knees forward, move your hips back. You can even grab your butt and lift it up. Remember that it's not super open pose. You can then put your hands to your front thigh, tuck the chin in, and fill into your upper back. So the first principle in Bowspring Radiant Heart is a circumferential expansion of the rib cage in all directions, including the back body. But don't overdo it so much that you tuck. So keep the glutes lifted, and then come back. Globe hands, push off your back foot, and then step your right foot just a little bit forward. I'll move the block out of the way. Push your foot forward, move your hips back, drag your foot back, feel the back of your leg tone and engage, and your calf muscles are like, yeah man, it's me, I'm gonna do the work today. And then lift your foot, step back, short lunge position. Bend your knees. You can even place your hands to the outside of your knees. Push your knees out into the resistance of your hands. Sometimes I'll literally practice with an elastic band around the knees just to fire up the leg muscles more. Again, if it's the low back doing the work, try to get the upper back fuller, and then you're welcome to create a little bit of a pulse, and then push off, and then back to the first side. So the step forward is just to help to move the groins back, pulling back to tone the leg, and then short lunge position. Tilting forward, this time touching the hands down on a block, or I will literally stack a couple blocks up. I'll put them in that setting. So I'm in almost like a halfway lift position, but in the Bowspring lunge position. And then try to arch the low back, lift the chin, and then maintaining that and push the front leg straighter. Wow, that is a different stretch. Just as we did in the halfway lift, you're welcome to turn to the wall and bring the top of your head to the wall, arch the low back, and then push your front leg straighter. And I can't speak because it's so juicy. Woo! And then just for the sake of transition, I'll just switch to the other side here while I'm still at the wall. This is a funny position if you happen to be practicing and someone else is in the room, because they're like, did you just give yourself a timeout? What did you say to you? I think that'd actually be pretty funny. All of our self-sabotage talk and be like, hey, you time out. It's like, all right. Again, try to lift the glutes up and then push the front leg straighter. Going to move away from the wall, and then slowly rise up and step forward. Now, lie down onto your back and just notice how you lie down onto your back. And the tendency, if you're not aware, is to just sit down and then roll all the way onto the back. And I know that position because I've done it, and then I've also known it because it's like, oh, kind of hurts, or in the yoga sense where you round in. So in Bowspring, the attempt is to keep a natural curvature of the spine even as you come down onto your back. So we'll do it twice. So we can go both legs at different times. So lift your left foot, and then step your foot back, lower your knee down, reach your arms forward and wide, and then lift your right foot, bring it back, place your hands down, tuck your toes under, turn your knees to the left, reach your right arm long, and then roll onto your back. And it's like, what happened there? So notice the low back can maintain that inward arch position the whole time. So right arm overhead, push with your left hand, rise up to crouching cat, step or hop forward, immediately come up, hands to the knees, rise to stand earth position. Switching sides, whoa, trippy. Lift your right foot, point your toes back, knee down, lift your left foot back, hands down, tuck your toes, turn your knees to the right this time, bring your left arm long, low back maintains its arch position, and then just roll onto your back, wiggle your way to the center of your mat. Here in this position, crisscross your arms, lean to the left and reach your right arm straighter so your shoulder blade broadens, and then go over to the other side, lean to the right, reach your left arm straighter so your left shoulder blade broadens, and then back to center. Then lift your hips slightly, take both hands and grab both cheeks and pull your butt up towards your shoulders so that there's space for you to put your hand or maybe even your forearm under your low back. So what it's not is shoulder blades together and just one big back bend, but it is that the low back is slightly lifted. Now, push your left foot down, pull it back, lift your right knee, hold the back of your thigh, and extend your right leg straighter. And if you're less flexible, by creating that arch in your low back, this is a pretty intense position, and you may not get the leg all the way to straight. I don't even come close. I'm wearing pants to hide how much of a bend there is to my knee, which is a lot, but I feel the stretch. So then what's more important, the visual or the feeling inside? Okay, and then lower your foot down and then switch sides. Bring your left knee in, hold the back of your thigh, and extend your leg up. So is it your looks matter or the type of person you are, the qualities of your character? And that really says a lot about the practice, I think, in an age where we all want to be insta-famous, with our Russian robots liking and commenting on all of our Instagram posts. It's not always about how something looks, and more importantly, it's how it feels for you and the impact it can have off of the mat. This practice changed how I do everything, literally. Lift your feet, cup your knees with your palms, allow your arms to straighten. So what that means is instead of being in this position where you're tense, you can just let the arms straighten so the knees go right over the hips. Let gravity do the work of guiding your thigh bones down into your hip sockets. Relax your jaw. And then feel the back of your head heavy, your upper back, so the back of the rib cage is heavy, the back of the pelvis, the back of the hips are heavy. And then one by one, slide your legs long, bring your arms alongside you with your palms face down for a final rest, embracing the natural curvatures of the spine where your low back is slightly lifted. And the same is true for the back of your neck. There's been less emphasis there, but they share the same curve. It's called a lordosis. And isn't it true that sometimes the simplest remedy is to find something that is natural, organic, and just how we were meant to be? Namaste.